at letsfishnebraska.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here.
I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People Seeding Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
On the Block with Strick and Austin.
When you look at Nebraska baseball, a 40-win season, best pitching in the Big Ten, above average offense for the Big Ten. You go to regionals, far and away the best pitching staff, but a good half a run below even the third worst offense in that regional. When you look at Nebraska baseball, is that a program that needs to improve the pitching first or the lineup first to be able to make more of a dent in the postseason?
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
Their age,
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket. Every Saturday morning now in our new time, we're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
It's time to go one-on-one with DP. Coming at you live from the Koppel Chevrolet GMC studios. Here is your host, Derek Pearson. Brought to you by Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome to it on a Thursday night. I am glad that you're hanging out with us to have a meaningful discussion about the business that is NIL and collegiate athletics and what's going on around the country, because what is in one place is not always going on everywhere else. And there are different voices and different leaders, different types of leaders that are helping us kind of find firm footing and a greater understanding of the business behind collegiate athletics and what's going on. DP on a Thursday night, 402-464-5685 is the Sartor Hammond text line if you want to text in. And I will read your questions and get them to David. But I want to introduce our guest tonight, and he is the CEO of HBCU Icon, The Exchange, 1901, down in Louisiana. But he is a graduate of Howard University and Grambling, and I'm honored to have this conversation with David Dirks Jr. David, kind sir, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. I'm actually in Atlanta, but I'm doing good. I'm really excited. And one correction, DP, I am the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. You
Okay.
have Mark on. He's the CEO. But I'm good tonight. I'm good. I'm excited about our conversation, man. And I'm honored to be here with you tonight. So thank you for the opportunity and the platform.
Well, to give voice and to give face to some of the business that's going on, and some clarity for folks who may be confused about this NIL thing and the different collectives around the country that all have different responsibilities, different burdens, different frictions to go through. So let's go through your background. First, a Grambling grad. Talk to me about the Grambling State University.
Man, Grambling really molded me into the man that I am today. I'm from Los Angeles, California. Originally, I was the first in my family to go to college and then on to law school. I started some pretty good trends within my family. Nonetheless, while at Grambling, I really took I was a major in marketing, business marketing, minor in sociology, but I really took my collegiate career important. I was able to intern through opportunities from Grambling, but I interned with ESPN, I interned with Nike. One of those years, BET did a show called Season of the Tiger. It was a reality show based on our star football player at the time and a few band members. So that was my introduction to the business of entertainment, I would say, right? And through ESPN and Nike, the business of sports. I really learned early on that there were millions, if not billions of dollars that these corporations were putting into what's called sports marketing, entertainment marketing, a whole department that was focused on making sure that brands were in front of consumers and that they can really consume these different opportunities. So I took that opportunity, went on back to LA, decided to go to law school. I was inspired by the Barack Obama to be a lawyer. And that was really my opportunity, but I took advantage of all of the opportunities that Grambling gave me. I was a student leader. I was involved in really creating programs for our students and really creating the business of events, which I do also in addition to being a lawyer today. So that was my story, and that was my experience.
David, I mean, there's so many different seeds planted in what you just said. One, in that we're all motivated and inspired by different people and in those spaces. And that's how greatness is formed, that somebody has to plant the seed and then feed it and then put you in a situation where you can do better, not only for yourselves, but the next group of David Dirks out there who will aspire to greatness if we lead them to it. Why did you choose Howard to get your secondary and what was the importance of it?
In addition to what I always deemed me being sort of an entertainment and sports, I also am an advocate, right? I organized, I was a part of the organizers of the Gina Six movement. When I was at Grambling, we got buses, the NAACP. So Howard University, the university in general, but the School of Law is so rich in moving African American rights, the rights for Black and Brown folks forward. So I really wanted to take my talents to a school that was focused on really creating the next lawyers for tomorrow, regardless of the field that you're in or regardless of the practice that you're in. You can always be an advocate. And Charles Hamilton Houston, the first dean of the School of Law, pretty much said that a lawyer is either a parasite on society or a social engineer, right? So that, for me, sums up why I chose to go to Howard University School of Law. And I'm really excited. It wasn't easy at all, but I'm happy I got through it, and I'm happy that I'm a licensed attorney today.
How difficult, mark me on a scale of how difficult it was being first generation and now being a lawyer, making all the decisions, going through all the friction that you had to go through, tough decisions, and then oftentimes a narrow hallway to walk down to get to the door that was appropriate for you to do the great things you're doing today?
No, I mean it was very difficult, right? We sometimes choose to go to what we are familiar with, right? Family, friends, mentors. So I had to find mentors. I had to find my support system while at Howard, and I do have a really good support system till this day. But there's this method called the Socratic method, where they just call you out of nowhere to answer a question that the professor asked, and that was really stressful. The tests back then were in blue books. We had to write everything out. We couldn't type it out. I think I took my last law school exam before actually going to take the bar exam, and we were actually typing. But nonetheless, the reading, right, the case law that you have to study, and really figuring out the nuances of the law, right? There's always two attorneys on each side arguing a case, and then there's the trier of fact, whether it's a judge or the jury, right? So each of those folks, those parties, are listening to those facts, interpreting the law as instructed, sometimes by judge instructions, and you have to really figure out how and what type of lawyer that you're going to be. So I couldn't depend on my mom, who's a great supporter. I couldn't depend on my dad, who supports me. But I had to reach out to other Grambling and Howard Law alums. There were folks before me that also had that journey, right? So that was the connection. So I think it's important for people to understand that although when you're trailblazing and you're creating first for yourself, for your family, there are pathways to make sure that you're not doing that alone, and that you shouldn't be doing it alone. But it is sometimes a very lonely road, because you are the person trailblazing. So there were mistakes that I made. And now those who come after me, the next David Dirks, especially those in my family, I can help be those mentors for those individuals. And I do that from time to time permitting, to make sure that I'm also mentoring the next up and coming lawyers or whoever is coming through, either Grambling or Howard, in that sense. So
we're talking to David Dirks Jr. And David, through all of this, friction is required for you to decide to move other people forward with you. Like, you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And then in this space, you're taking all of this knowledge, all of this experience, all of this friction, and you're trying to make it easier for the next generation. You're doing so through the Icon 1901. What exactly is your mission in this thing, and trying to help these young people have a better student athlete experience, in this particular case at Grambling, but in general at universities around the country?
I love that question. Young people can choose to do a couple of things as they are matriculating through college, matriculating through adulthood, and that is whether or not they're going to be prepared, right? And what does preparation look like? That's different for every student. That's different for every athlete, right? Your skill sets, your body composition, the way that you respond to training and different things like that is different for every athlete. That's the same thing for being prepared for life. So NIL is not new, right? We know that folks have been, I'm not going to say it. I'm a lawyer, but we know that folks have been in the business,
right,
in the business of making sure that folks perform at certain institutions. Nonetheless, I really wanted to make sure that students are prepared, know the laws that you are sort of working within, right? NIL is new. It is the wild, wild west out there. A lot of us that are in this space always talk about it. I mean, there's so many cases now where states are suing the NCAA, former students are suing the NCAA, and these rules are still in these rules are still there. So kids have to know NCAA rules, state law rules, school policies, right? You just want to make sure that you're prepared for whatever comes your way. And then that also includes how to, I see this as a great entrepreneurial tool for students, right? If you can create your own business model, if you can create your own business plan by becoming an influencer, or you're just really working with a brand that you loved and you've been loving through high school and through college, and they find your personality, they find your story interesting, and they want to pay you $500,000, $20,000, or whatever that number is, that's a business for you, right? So you need to be prepared in how to operate that business. Make sure that you're not signing contracts that you don't understand. Make sure that you're paying taxes on things. There were a couple of clips floating around where people were like, the IRS is knocking at my door now and said I owe all this money, or what happened. Those things are important, right? So as I would say, the floodgates opened, right? There's also an equity issue here. There are some kids that's going to have access. They have a David Dirks in their family. They have a David Dirks at school, right? They have a Mark Smith. They have a Derek Pearson that can say, do X, Y, and Z. But there are a lot of kids out there that do not have access to folks like us. So my mission and the mission of Icon 1901 is to make sure that we provide access, information, and education to any student athlete, especially those that are Black and brown, especially those that are HBCU, but any student athlete that wants this information and needs it. They really do need it, because we want to set them up for success. The same way that they're being set up for success on the field at their schools or in the classroom through their majors, through their professors, we want to make sure, and we saw an opening, we saw a gap. Folks were taking advantage of kids. Folks are taking advantage of schools. Some of these businesses are, right? So we really wanted to come into this space and really make it easy for folks to understand, make sure that they see themselves in the NIL space. And that's really my personal mission, is to continue to explain contracts to folks, explain these are the rules and how you should follow them, and be able to answer those questions when they do come up.
David, so much of this, and there are many tentacles to it, because at the form of it is an idea and a concept that students have value and should be able to generate some financial advantage because of those skills, because of those personalities, because of the brand. But a big part of that is also that the university is involved in this, the coaches, the administrators are involved in it, the student athletes are trying to find the way, and then the lost faction are the parents, who are trying to figure out, because as you said, first generation, there are a lot of folks that don't have an uncle or a dad or a mom who have gone through this, or have had financial success, or have the legal acumen, or even access to resources that could tell them, hey, here's what you may need to think of. So from your perspective, what are the real frictions? I mean, what of those tentacles? And we can talk about each of them. As a matter of fact, I want to be transparent. There's no way that David and I can have the full conversation we need to have in one conversation. So there's
not at all,
right? There's beauty in that, but that's part of the plan. But in the long term, so let's start with coaches. So you're currently dealing with a coach that Nebraska fans are familiar with in Mickey Joseph, and he's down in Grambling, and you're helping them put themselves in a better situation as well. There are rules, laws, and boundaries that you have to keep Mickey informed with to help him stay in line and meet compliance and be in place, and then so that he can direct his student athletes to stay between the lines and in the boundaries. How difficult are those conversations, and what are the what's the first thing that when you talk to a coach and you say to him, you have to do this or be aware of this, and your players have to be aware of this?
It really is that compliance piece, I think, for the coaches, right? And then a quick second, right? The very immediate second, DP, is making sure that we assist the coaches in not creating any locker room friction, right? So now we're dealing with that. You're managing student athletes. You're also trying to figure out sort of how do you recruit in this new space, right? The kids want NIL deals. A part of that conversation is, are there NIL deals? Are there opportunities, the prospect of those happening, right? And currently, it's currently being challenged.
Right.
But there is an NCAA rule where you can't use NIL to induce student athletes for recruitment, right? That's not a part of it. But again, we see the news, we watch the news, right? We see what's happening. So for those coaches, and this is not particular to Mickey Joseph, but for those coaches that want to really stay out of the news,
Right.
out of our conversations, right? They should be privy to how they're separating their coaching responsibilities and building a good squad, building a good roster, but also thinking about how to also bring in those resources that are separate and apart from the schools, the institutions, from the athletics department, but that you can have people that are there to facilitate and help the student athletes. Now, there's also this thing with sort of HBCUs and in Mickey Joseph's position. There are not NIL staff employed like those at some of our Power 5 or our other D1 schools, right? So as a collective that serves these institutions, that's where we come into play, and we help bridge the gap with resources, again, information with the parents, information with the students, information to the student official, the school officials as well, right? So the first step, again, just to circle back to the first point, is making sure that compliance, we understand what the student athletes have to do per school rules, per state legislation, and the NCAA rules that are definitely being attacked right now. And maybe for good measure, we're on the podcast, so I'm going to, say my opinion, maybe for good measure. But, I have to say this at this juncture right now, because we're talking about it, I really hope that this is all settled, because it does seem like, again, those folks who have resources and access are going to be the ones that are on top, whereas everyone else is going to be left out of the equation. And that's something that we shouldn't be creating the inequities that we're going to be seeing and that we're currently seeing in this space. But we are.
Through all of it, right? That coaches are learning, and the fact that it's fluid, because it's kind of a moving goalpost, right? That you can say, here are the laws in this particular case, get active based on that law, and then have that law, or at least the agreement to that law, change pretty quickly. So, and then here's the other thing. Not every state is NIL compliant or cooperative, right?
Mm-mm.
Like there are states
Right.
where there's still some dark areas.
There's still some states and their legislators intentionally were quiet about certain things, right? There are some states where it's very, very prescriptive, right?
Yep.
You can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. And then there are some states that says you can't stop kids from making money from name, image, and likeness, and that's the end of it. So now it's like, what exactly what's there is, and that's the wild, wild west part of it, right? Is that each state, California was on the verge of being first, where Florida came in and scooped in and said, nah, we're going to make this legal because California can't beat us. I find it so interesting, but I also find Congress's inaction so far very interesting because, oh man, we can get on so much deeper. I'm going to let you finish asking the questions, but this whole the labor union issue is so interesting. It's so interesting.
Well, you're familiar with the DMV, and you know how that area gets down. I think the big part and a big responsibility that we have, that you and I, that people in this space have, people with microphones, people that understand the boundaries, who understand how that stuff really works in that corridor, right? And people in the middle of the country don't always know, hey, I understand that you see the pro wrestlers version of politics where they get on TV and finger point, but the reality is they get behind a closed door and they're drinking beer and eating dinner together and not telling that truth. So a big part of folks outside of this, you're working for a collective that has chosen to help to start one particular group, which will then in turn help 113 HBCUs try to maneuver and navigate forward and up in NIL through some murky water. Is that a fair synopsis of what's really going on?
No, absolutely. And it's funny that we're talking about it because I was literally, just thinking. I think a lot, and I often wonder. Again, I'm from LA, y'all. I'm visiting Atlanta right now, but I live in the DMV. And I'm very familiar with lobbying. I'm very familiar with visiting Congress and telling my representative what I need because I do it. And I do it yearly for different causes. I do wonder what's happening in the HBCU space, right? We want to make sure that we're getting funding for our schools, but there's a conversation to be had in this NIL space and that contingent of student athletes, right? Again, these rules are going to have wide implication of how they're going to impact certain institutions differently. And we need people at the table that's going to speak to those implications. And we need rules that are going to be accountable for the systemic inequities that are going to occur. And they just are, because who we have playing at this are big corporations. I'm not going to call any names out. We have big schools, we have big conferences, and we have some folks that are really tied to these institutions that are, definitely dedicated to see it play out a certain way in their favor. And that's the game that we're playing. And that's the part that I think we have to be really, really cognizant of as we continue to move forward. So, it does behoove people in this space. It behooves HBCUs. It behooves those institutions that are not even HBCUs, but they may be minority serving, and they're not the Power Five. They're not the Pac-10. They're not these big institutions to also step up and say, we are in this space. Our schools matter. Our athletics matter. Our student athletes matter. And this is the thing that we need.
We are talking with David Dirks Jr. We will go to break. When we come back, David, I want to ask you about the things that if you get to make a statement out loud to student athletes to get them to the door. And then the other thing is the statement out loud to boosters and community about why they are needed in this space and the benefits that communities, folks in small corners of the country, what they can do for the young people who are trying to find their way in NIL. This is One-on-One on 93.7 The Ticket.
Download our app by searching 93.7 The Ticket in your app store. You're listening to One-on-One with DP on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. On the Block with Strick and Austin.
When you look at Nebraska baseball, a 40-win season, best pitching in the Big Ten, above average offense for the Big Ten. You go to regionals, far and away the best pitching staff, but a good half a run below even the third worst offense in that regional. When you look at Nebraska baseball, is that a program that needs to improve the pitching first or the lineup first to be able to make more of a dent in the postseason?
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
Do you need motivation to get to the gym on the weekend or even in general? Tune into the Movement Hour each Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. Movement Academy owner Robert Kuhlman will host the show as he introduces new ways to stay in shape. The Movement Hour every Saturday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You never think cancer will happen to you. I smoked for over 40 years. My doctor recommended that I get annual lung cancer screening. They were able to catch my cancer at stage 1. It's never too late to quit. Even if you're still smoking, you need to ask your doctor about annual lung cancer screening. Just 30 minutes a year could save your life.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're spending $300 a month. Binge drinking is the most common form of excessive drinking, which costs the United States more than $191 billion each year. By drinking less, you will save $300 a month. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska DHHS in partnership with SAMHSA.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs
and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner?
or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity
not to make friends, but just to get something to eat?
Or a retiree who fell ill and had to
choose between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and must wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the K&TK Studios, 1040 O Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeited. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
Old School with DP and J.
Everybody's going to focus on his intensities and antics. I think he would be just fine because Billy Donovan is doing well, right? And he's intense as all get out. But how do you think he would transition to the NBA as a coach? And then also, what does this tell you about the Lakers?
93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. You're listening to One-on-One with DP. Brought to you by Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
It is an exceptional conversation with David Dirks Jr., COO of the HBCU Icon 1901. Legal information at its in an explainable way. Harrison and I were just talking about the beauty of having you break it down at such a clear, crispy, clean level that we got moved by it. Here's the question, right? That there are people who will follow and support different universities. And again, supporting Georgia and Alabama and Nebraska is different than supporting Grambling, Howard, Southern, Jackson State. The dollar travels farther. It's longer green in those smaller communities. And for the student athletes in those programs at HBCUs, the dollar goes wild. So what do we need to do, and what can we do to move local communities in the vacuums of those HBCUs to contribute and donate and support these programs and these young people?
I think it's education now. We're talking about education, but I think there's an education gap, right? I think we need to let supporters know, and I'm talking about alumni, I'm talking about parents, I'm talking about businesses, right? I'm talking about Chamber of Commerce's know sort of this new opportunity to tap into young people that are talented, that can help move products, messages, whatever the case may be, right? Like influencer marketing, guerrilla style marketing tactics are not new. I said I was a marketing major in undergrad. So bringing the legal and the marketing together, you're able to create very authentic messaging with students that are tied to your local community in order to, one, support the student athletes, support the schools, but also in that, bring people back into your storefronts, bring people back into your cause. And that's really about cycling the resources in the community, right? It's a circular sort of opportunity here. We all know that the dollar travels fast. The dollar for Black folks travels really fast. Those statistics still rings true in terms of who are the number one consumers for a lot of things: cars, technology. I can go down a list, so forth and so forth. So I think the opportunity here is for folks to get educated, and they don't understand this new space, right? I hear people, and I'm going to say old people. I hear old people because I'm old people.
Right.
NIL wasn't around, right? We were all in school and said, man, we couldn't make money when we were in school. Scholarship was our money. It's new. It's a new day, and it's a new opportunity. The kids are talented at all of these schools. The content that they make, we know social media sales. We know content sales. That's why people are millionaires off of Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So with that being said, there's a new opportunity to sell media in a different way, to sell digital assets and branding in a different way. And that's the story that we need to tell, and we need to bring back to, if you want to help these institutions, if you want to help these schools, this is the way that we do it. It's a direct link to the student athletes. It really is.
David, how much friction do you get in dealing with universities who operate in trying to stay compliant, trying to be proactive, trying to be safe, but trying, quite frankly, to not work from fear? Because most universities operate in fear that I can get out over my skis, or I'm going into a new space and I'm not real sure. Maybe there's a blind spot that I haven't seen. As a legal mind, what do you say to the universities? What do we say to Grambling to get them to take a deep breath with us, exhale, and then take steps forward?
Risk mitigation and risk management is important, right? So establishing that grounding, right, from a very rudimentary place, that's important. But if that's where you stop, you are really handicapping your opportunity to really make an opportunity for your program to be successful, right?
David, say that, bruh. That needs to be on a shirt. That needs to be.
I mean, because it's just what you said. Like they are stopping at the fear. They're not moving cautiously, right? They're not moving, right? It's about standing on a tradition that may or may not be there anymore, and not really moving with the speed of let's vet these things, let's talk to all of the interested parties, and let's make this happen. And then the last thing that I will say is that folks have to really think about control in a different way, because they can't control these kids, right? So the fact that you can't control these student athletes anymore lets you know that you can't completely control this situation either. So you need to figure out how to play in the playground, in the sandbox with the people that are involved, and make this thing happen, because this is going to happen with or without you. It will be better with you, because there is a legal perspective that the schools have. They have intellectual property that the brands want to align with, and they're not even capitalizing on that opportunity. I'm going to be quiet before somebody gives me a call, but that is the reality. That is the reality. They're not capitalizing on it.
Well, but
it's a missed opportunity.
But that is the thing. I don't know why that in areas of higher education, of higher reward, literally these are vacuums that are built so that we take on new, that we engage the new, that we celebrate the new, that we experience the new. That's why you're pulled out of small towns and countries and counties all over the world, from LA to Ruston, Louisiana, to Washington, D.C. and beyond, because you're supposed to experience the new. You're supposed to do it from an educated format. You're supposed to do it from a connected format, and then you're supposed to make it better than it was. And that's the opportunity. And I think that is the responsibility of the Icon 1901. And a part of why I jumped in the water with you was that you had organized a core group of people, intelligent, brilliant, bright people with good hearts who want to help student athletes and the universities that they love. And to me, that seems pretty simple.
Innovation is an often forgotten about term in I think education, right? We can all be, it can be, very robotic. You gotta go to class, you gotta take these courses, you gotta do this, you graduate, yay, you're an alum now, right? But what are institutions doing to be innovative? What are institutions doing to really change the landscape by really attacking this opportunity for what it's worth? It really is. I mean, that's why we have a Caitlin Clark and a Angel Reese, because if we didn't have NIL, they are talented athletes. Full stop. Full stop. However, the fact that they were walking red carpets and they were getting these big deals just added to how people view them and how many people can view them. There is a reason. That is, Caitlin Clark is the Taylor Swift of women's basketball. There's a reason why NIL helped Caitlin Clark capitalize on her amazing athleticism. And those two, in this space, in this world, go hand in hand. She is a hero to some young girls that are in Nebraska, some young girls that are in Louisiana. They see her aligned with these brands. The brands that are aligned with her are doing well, and everybody who can see it is making and taking that opportunity for what it's worth. So if we don't figure out ways, even on a small scale, to do that, because at the Icon 1901, it's not about Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. It's about all of the student athletes that can create the same type of movement and drop in the bucket that those names can carry. And that's what it's about.
Through so much of this, and I think that as we take the steps forward, and again, I think I've been clear in letting folks, and we need to make a formal statement so folks understand that we're united in this thing, because I don't want, full transparency,
Absolutely.
right, to let people know that even from Lincoln, Nebraska, through this vehicle that is 93.7 The Ticket, and the foundations that we've built here, that we're going to help other universities. We're going to help other coaches, other collectives, other student athletes simply have a better existence by offering voice, by offering amplification, by offering brilliance and bright lights around them and who they are, and then allowing people, here's the part I think people miss, allowing people to be proud of themselves, David. Like, it's just, we're missing the layup, but I think collectives like 1901 are going to help us get it right.
I believe in celebrating the wins and the losses, right? There's something to be learned in all of it. You take the good with the bad, and you absolutely need to celebrate yourself all the time. You have to encourage yourself. Don't get me to preaching in here today, but you have to encourage yourself along the process. And this is no different, right? So when the schools do well, I'm proud of all of the first that Grambling State has been able to achieve this past year. Playing at the NCAA March Madness game, the baseball team going as far as it did, and we want to see that happen for football as well. But the reality of it is, we have to share the good news. We have to speak up when we're doing these amazing opportunities, and that's what the opportunity of NIL to also do that. Tell the story, control the narrative, and use your best assets in doing that, and that's the student athletes.
We are going to go to break. When we'll come back, we'll close out this fine hour with David Dirks Jr., but I want to ask him to leave folks with information on how to become involved, even if it's not in the Icon 1901, but how to be involved. And then for those that want to reach out for more information, that will allow David to direct them to the proper sources. DP, David Dirks Jr. here on The Ticket FM.
Watch live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You're listening to One-on-One with DP on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and must wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the K&TK Studios, 1040 O Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeit. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
There's no better way to spark a child's imagination than to get lost in the adventure of a good book. I'm Jenny Benson, president of NSEA. Working together, parents and teachers can help every child succeed. You can help by reading to your child and let your child read to you. Encourage reading in your home and make it a priority. Make reading fun and a time that you and your child look forward to spending together.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association in the station.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Join us each Saturday from 11 a.m. to noon for Youth Football 101 with Tank Perry of the Nebraska Red Wolves of 7-on-7 football. The future of the sport depends on the foundation set at a young age. Hear those stories and more each Saturday from 11 a.m. to noon here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Whether you like fishing together or fishing to get away for the thrill of reeling in a big one, or just going out to have a good time on the banks of your local pond, at a bend in a river, or on one of our many lakes and reservoirs, you'll always find the perfect place to cast a line, here, beneath Nebraska skies. Start planning your next fishing adventure today at letsfishnebraska.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
I'm Chris Jackimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is "My job is people, everyone is my business." But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend. Old School with DP and J.
Everybody's going to focus on his intensities and antics. I think he would be just fine because Billy Donovan is doing well, right? And he's intense as all get out. But how do you think he would transition to the NBA as a coach? And then also, what does this tell you about the Lakers?
93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. You're listening to One-on-One with DP, sponsored by Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
It has been a fantastic hour, informative, entertaining, educating, and that's when you know that you've landed on something good. Great resource in David Dirks Jr. Greatly appreciate you dropping knowledge and sharing information with our listeners and folks around the country who, quite frankly, I mean, there are families, there are young people, there are families, coaches who are trying to navigate their way through this new territory. And it's not easy. I happen to be a believer that it's simpler than people are making it, because I think in some cases it's just access and information. People become afraid and then they don't ask. They don't know who to ask. They don't know where to go. So David, if you would please let folks know how to reach you in case they have questions, in case they have curiosities that maybe you can help them with.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, our website, the icon1901.com, is a great resource. And that's where you all can reach out to us. You can see what we're doing. You can check out our platform, the HBCU Icon Exchange. I'm on Twitter at Dave Dirks, DAVDIRKS. And you also can email me and find access to my email address through the website, but that's ddirks@theicon1901.com. You should definitely, sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, give me that one. You you should definitely figure out how to get more information, how to get more involved. If you're a business owner, there are philanthropy dollars, right? And money that you want to give away because you want a good tax write-off or because you care. But there are also marketing dollars that you must spend to really push your services and your products. Use those marketing dollars and create a budget for your favorite team. Maybe it's Grambling, maybe it's Nebraska, wherever it is.
Use those dollars and create an opportunity and tell your story using authentic storytellers and the student athletes of tomorrow. They're not only going to help you sell your services and sell your products, but they're going to be the consumers of tomorrow. That's important. And for parents, for school officials, all of that, connect with your collectives and really get involved. We are going to build this out together. We can only protect one another by talking to each other. We can't silo ourselves, but that's really important in this space. And that's how we're going to continue to move forward. And that's how people should move in this space.
David, what's the easiest way, best way to donate? Is it sending checks? Is it digital for tracking purposes? Maybe for tax records as well? What's the best way for folks, and what are the options?
The best way to donate is online. I mean, it's real easy. You can do it on your phone now. Again, go to the icon1901.com. There's what is it called? It's a little floater thing, kind of what's floating on the screen now. It'll tell you that you click here to donate. That's really an easy way. And there will be multiple ways for you to do that. But definitely, please contribute whatever you can. We are creating a movement. We're creating a community of HBCU students that are really going to do some really amazing things, both on the field, in the classroom, but also as entrepreneurs and as employees of tomorrow. And that's really what we are using here. It's not about just today. It's also about skills for tomorrow.
David, again, I am grateful to be included, to sit in the passenger seat and kind of watch you create in a very pioneer mentality, that you are creating a thing that is so new and so necessary and so vital to make the experience of so many student athletes, so many families, so many communities, and then so many athletic programs be in better situations than they were, than you found them. And that is heroic. So, as a matter of fact, some would say it's iconic. So, David, thank you. Thank you for dropping knowledge.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate you and what you're doing. We'll talk probably tomorrow or this weekend and set up some things. I'm going to head down Louisiana way and see if we can get some things. And then I'm going to catch you in the DMV when I come home and see my people.
Listen, let me know. Let me know when, but thank you for everything that you're doing, DP. This is really amazing, and I'm looking forward to continuing our conversations.
NIL is a vast land. And to have folks navigate you through it, absolutely necessary, especially when they're good, intelligent, bright people with a good heart. This is the good work. DP, out on 93.7 The Ticket. Ticket weeknight, so keep it moving forward. David Dirks Jr., thank you, kind sir.
Dance like a dance.